Hello and welcome to tonight's SAMAG talk, Youth Arts, Why We Should Care What Young People Think. It's great to have you all here. I'm Sophie Harrington. I'm a SAMAG committee member and I'm also the Public Program Manager at the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences. Before we kick off and go any further, I'd just like to introduce Em Leinhardt, who will be giving us an Acknowledgement of Country. Thank you.
My name is Emily Leonard and I'm a proud Bundjalung woman. I am part of the MCA Youth Committee and proud to be representing my community here today. Today I'm going to share with you a special acknowledgement. Could everyone who is able-bodied please get out of their seats and put your hands in the air? So with your hands in the air, could you shout out some of the things that are above us? Sky, ceiling, lights, yep, atmosphere, clouds, air conditioning, yep. Now I would like you to move your hands down to body level and think about what's around us. Now name some of the things that are around us. People, trees, stairs, seats, exit sign. Yep. Now bring your attention to your feet and where they're located, grounding yourself to what's beneath you. Now what are some of the things that are underneath us? Wood, carpet, sandstone, the gallery, water, dirt. Yep. Now you can take a seat. Thank you. So another thing that's beneath us is the memory. This place is a special memory. It will remember us here today. It remembers things of yesterday, a year ago, 10 years ago, 200 years ago, thousands of years. The memory held in this place highlights the continuity of the Indigenous culture in Australia. It brings to light the continuing practice of acknowledging country and the importance of it. The welcoming of Indigenous mob to others' countries has existed for thousands of years, and so the significance of me standing here to acknowledge the country we meet on goes back through ancestors. The land we stand on now is known to most by circular key, yet in Gadigal language it is known as Warang. Can everyone repeat that word with me? Warang. Yes. I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, elders past, present and emerging. I further acknowledge and extend my respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people present here today. Always was and always will be. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Em. Now, just a bit of a plug about SAMAG before we kick off with the talk. For most of you, you will have found out that this event was on this evening, but if you don't know more about SAMAG, it's a not-for-profit organisation that's run by a group of volunteers. We're very dedicated, if I do say so myself, but you can actually go online and get a membership if you don't already have one, and it gives you access to all of our events that run roughly monthly each year, and they're about professional development for arts workers and increasing our skills and providing a chance to network on a platform for discussion like events this evening. Tonight we're joined by an amazing group of young people and youth arts workers who will be sharing their experiences with us. They're all going to do something different. It's a rapid fire presentation, so we're in for a real treat. Before we kick off though, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Jo Higgins, who's my co-producer in this event. She's also the Young Creatives Coordinator here at the MCA, and she's been a Churchill Fellow in 2018. She's going to jump up now and just tell us a bit more about her work and some of her findings from the Churchill Fellow. So thanks, Jo.
Thank you, Sophie, and thank you, Em, for that beautiful acknowledgement of country. I'm really thrilled to welcome you all here tonight in my capacity as MCA's Young Creatives Coordinator and as the co-producer of tonight's panel. I hope you got to join Eshna, Jane and Ping on their tour of Sean Gladwell earlier. As the Young Creatives Coordinator here at the MCA, I have the great privilege of working with and advocating for our Young Guides and Youth Committee. I also oversee our youth-led program, Gen Next, which you'll hear more about later. Where am I going? I'm heartened to see so many people here tonight, young and old, to talk not just about young people and the arts, but with young people in the arts. Because I don't really think we can talk about the value and impact of youth arts programs if we don't first recognise the expertise of young people and invite them to the table or the panel as collaborators, as co-producers, as agitators and as advocates for their own experiences. Before I hand over to some pretty exceptional young people and youth programmers, I want to frame tonight's provocation, why you should care what young people think, with some recent evaluation we've done here at the MCA and with my own recent research as a Churchill Fellow, investigating different models of informal and youth-led learning programs in North America. Yes, there may be an increasingly starved funding elephant in the room, but it is, I really believe, an exciting time to be talking about youth arts. Why? Well, because we're finally at the start of some wider conversations about the increasing value of creativity to future economies, business innovation, jobs growth. And we're in a moment too when some interesting broader questions are being asked about the role of the arts when it comes to formal education, safe cultural spaces, mental health and other social services. What provisions or skills are not being offered or taught to young people that the arts, and youth arts programs especially, are uniquely qualified to provide? But also, what can we as organisations learn from young people today as they advocate for social change, take risks, ask challenging questions and build communities? It was in the context of these and other conversations that we set out to evaluate Gen Next last year, which has now welcomed over 30,000 young people to the MCA since it launched in 2005. Throughout 2018, we worked with cultural research agency Pattern Makers to co-design an evaluation framework in collaboration with past and present MCA Youth Committee members, asking, how does participation at Gen Next impact individuals in real time and later in life? Looking at the Gen Next experience and who was and wasn't participating and why, we identified 3 key areas of inquiry. Gen Next's impact on well-being and other areas of life. The impact of Gen Next on broader arts participation, and identifying what, if any, learnings there were for museums and galleries. We gathered data from focus groups, expert interviews, observations, and a survey that received over 1,100 responses. I'm not going to share all our findings tonight. A simple online search for Gen Next Impact Report will direct you to all 131 pages of data and stories. But I did want to share some very top-level things that we learned. We learned that 96% of people felt Gen Next was a safe and supportive environment. That 84% of people said that attending Gen Next had a positive impact on their overall well-being. And the more often they come, the better they feel. 74% of people agreed that Gen Next helped them to find themselves and to express their identity. 87% of attendees agreed that Gen Next allowed them to think more deeply about social and cultural issues, compared to 77% of non-Gen Next attendees. And in comparing Gen Next attendees to non-Gen Next attendees of the same age, we also learned that Gen Next attendees are more likely to attend other exhibitions outside the MCA. They're more likely to buy a work of art in the future. And they're also more likely to donate to an arts organisation in the future. Reassuringly, these kinds of findings around the longer-term impact of youth participation in the arts also bear out in other studies across the US and UK. But the chance to undertake research like this, to be able to better advocate for what we do and what we don't do actually, and why, was a huge part of why I applied for a Churchill Fellowship. And earlier this year, I had the opportunity to spend 2 months travelling across North America. I visited 33 different arts organisations and institutions. I met with education and public programs teams. I joined youth council meetings and observed a range of teen programs, all while eating some very questionable American snacks. Hot Cheetos are a thing, apparently. Beyond identifying different models and opportunities for working with and engaging young people and thinking about the challenges that we face here as a sector, I also wanted to better understand and be able to articulate the value of a youth presence within an arts organisation. I wanted to unpack ideas around success, what that looks like, and how we talk about it to funders and arts leadership. I wanted to learn more about evaluation and how to better report on impact. And I wanted to come home able to make a case for increased collaboration, capacity building, and knowledge sharing across the sector. And so it begins. I'm looking forward to sharing my report in the coming weeks and to clambering up onto what I think are some pretty achievable soapboxes. But I am excited to announce that early next year, MCA will be offering some professional development workshops for the sector based on all of this research and everything that we've learned from inviting teenagers into the building over the last 14 years. Across all of my experiences, perhaps my biggest takeaway, beyond reaffirming that teenagers know more about most things than me, is that we need to work together across the sector to articulate common frameworks and language to better talk about what we do and why, to leverage our collective expertise and research and to just come together and talk, and to make sure that young people are part of that conversation when we do. Which is why it's been a total pleasure to help co-produce tonight's event. I'm really looking forward to what's ahead. And I'm now going to hand back to Sophie Harrington. So thank you and welcome again.
Thanks, Jo. I think that really frames what we're going to be hearing about tonight perfectly. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Emily Buxton and Daisy Millpart from the Australian Theatre for Young People. Thanks, guys.
Hello everyone, my name is Emily and this here is Daisy. We are both part of the Atypicals at ATYP, which is the Australian Theatre for Young People. I'm 22 years old. I've been with ATYP for the last 2 years.
And I'm 13 years old. I've been involved with the arts for about 4 years.
So ATYP engages with over 25,000 young people every year. And they do a really great job of actively involving young people in all of their decisions, in all of their workshops, and are really just at the heart of the process. I'm just going to get the obvious thing straight out of the way. ATYP does school drama, they do classes, they do workshops, courses. It's all about drama for kids. And all the youth perform in the shows. It's all about giving youth the connections to the professional industry that they want to go into, to give them confidence that comes from drama, just have fun, have a safe space to perform and play. The program that Daisy and I are a part of is the Atypicals, which is a youth advisory committee for ATYP for youth that are 13 to 26 years old. We meet roughly once a month. We get to give thoughts and opinions on what we want to see from ATYP, what we like, what we don't like, what we want to see improve. We get to learn from professionals in the company how it runs. So we get to speak with the resident dramaturg, Jane. We get to learn from the development coordinators, speak to Fraser, the artistic director of the company, and many more. We give feedback on opinions and scripts as well, which is always fun, on programs and classes as well that we want to see. So for example, this year we got to speak with one of the workshop curators, Rob, about what classes we wanted to come up, and out of that we actually produced a new Monday night scene class for kids that want to actively get more scene work, and as well for the older 18 plus of us that are ATYP, we got to actually start a scratch night. Fraser came to us, said that we wanted to do this thing, and out of that he gave it to us, and we got to produce this amazing scratch night for emerging artists to network, put up work, and all of that fun stuff. Yes, it is got a swear word in it. It is called sparkly shit, and it's a lot of fun. Another amazing thing that ATYP does that I learnt from joining the Atypicals this year is that the company really champions writers and emerging playwrights. They have a few initiatives. They have the Fresh Ink program, which has been running for 10 years, and it is a national mentorship program for emerging playwrights to work with the resident dramaturg Jane and other amazing established mentors and playwrights such as Lachlan Philpott, Nikki Bloom, Ross Mueller. I know I freak out at these names, they're amazing. And past participants are amazing playwrights like Lucy Clements, Jules Orculo, Emma Sheehan and Greta Vala. In the Fresh Ink program, they get to present a 15-minute piece and a 30-minute piece once a year, and they also get to work with actors from ATYP in presenting their works. The other one, which is just actually wrapped up 2 weeks ago, is the National Studio, which is an amazing program for 20 emerging playwrights who get to spend a week in residency being mentored by leading playwrights again. They get to participate in workshops, and from there they actually get to create pieces that are then showcased in ATYP's yearly production Intersection, which is specifically a piece written by young people about young people's life, all the struggles that we go through. And then finally, what wrapped up just this week is The Writing Place, which is a similar program to the National Studio, and it brings together emerging regional writers in South Australia to produce a monologue, and they all get to present it, and it's a great way to bring regional voices into the creative arts. There are lovely scholarships and programs that ATYP does as well to help create and bring in new diverse voices. They had for 3 years the Rebel Wilson Female Comedy Writer Scholarship and the Roseburn Female Leader in the Arts Scholarships. And they have also produced over 130 scholarships towards disadvantaged people for workshops and programs who otherwise wouldn't have been able to participate if it was not for that. And finally, for the bits that I've experienced, you get amazing opportunities to go on behind productions. You get to assistant tutor, you get to help stage manage, just sit in on programs, anything. Basically, ATYP is great. If you ask, they get to help you out and you get to be a part of the company.
Hello, I'm Daisy, as Emily said. So I'd like to talk about the Foundation Commission, so the part of ATYP for under 18-year-olds. The Foundation Commission is an initiative of ATYP to write a play for young people with young people performing in it. This is an amazing opportunity for young people, as not only does it give them the chance to work in a professional theatre company and be treated like adult professional actors, but the auditions for these shows are open to anyone. I was lucky enough to be an actor in one of the plays in 2018, and performing on the stage of the National Theatre for Young People was such an incredible experience. As well as having young people designing and performing in the show, ATYP also has young people decide which shows to put on. This ensures that young people will enjoy and watch the show, having been selected by one of their peers. The plays are read by young people and the ATYP team, who give feedback to the group on which plays they like the most. From this, the commission winner is decided. Last year, I was in the selection process, and I think that it was a really valuable experience, as I learnt so many things about the writing and selection process, what makes a good show, important ideas surrounding writing and development, and much more. This experience gave me insight into the arts industry and helped me to develop connections to playwrights and theatre critics. The reason why these kinds of processes are important is that young people are needed to continue to create great theatre for years to come. They are needed in order to produce fresh, new, young ideas, and young people need this kind of theatre in order to follow their dreams and figure out who they are. ATYP was one of the first places that I felt I belonged, and it helped me to discover my passion for theatre. Another important part of ATYP, other than performance, is its education and support. One of the newer initiatives of ATYP is ATYP On Demand, which is kind of like Netflix for theatre. ATYP's shows are recorded each year and are being put onto a website, which brings them all up for students and teachers, and it's a really valuable resource to use in class. It has links to the curriculum for HSC students, reviews from the shows, behind-the-scenes Q&As, and class activities. It's an amazing way to get young people involved in theatre and to create engaging drama lessons, which many schools don't have the resources or teachers to create. To be able to see young people on the national stage for free is also reflective of ATYP's vision for the future. Another education program that ATYP has to offer are their workshops. They're one of the main education services that ATYP offers, and they're available in holidays, term time, and as a school workshop. These workshops aim to develop a love and passion for drama in young people through games, performance, and many other activities. They're taught by professional actors, writers, and directors who share their experience in the arts and allow young people to get to know them. They can make new friends and get better at public speaking. For example, participation in drama has been proven to increase literacy and performance in all subjects, and students are 3 more likely to get a degree if they come from a low-income family. To wrap up, workshops are an amazing way for young people to make friends, find confidence, and develop skills in other areas. I also wrote an introduction to the ATYP season brochure this year, which me and Emily feel encapsulates the message about youth at ATYP and in the arts that we want to express. In conclusion, ATYP isn't amazing because it holds fabulous classes or has incredible alumni, although both of those things are true. It's because it has a unique ability to harness the strength, power, intelligence, and creativity of young people and use it to make powerful, resonant, and beautiful theatre. They do that by accepting young people's concerns, values, and ideas. And not only that, but also taking action on them. I haven't heard of any other drama company in Australia in which adults, teens, and children meet and make big decisions together. When an idea or suggestion is presented by young people in the room, it is valued. This trust in us and the power given to us to create change and theatre and art is what gives young people at theatre companies all over the world their determination and passion, the will to go on stage and give it their all. Thank you.
Thank you, Daisy and Emily. That was amazing. Now I'd like to invite Maddie DeLeon and Stephanie Nui from Casula Powerhouse Arts Centre Youth to come on up and join us. Thank you.
Hi guys, just have to adjust the mic because I'm short. All right. So hi there, my name is Maddie. I'm the CPAC Youth Admin Lead and Marketing Lead at CPAC Youth. I'm a musician and I also play the ukulele because I'm really short, as you can tell.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm also the Admin Lead for CPAC Youth. I also do social media marketing. And on the side, I study my master's in publishing at UCID. I do creative non-fiction writing, and I also work in editorial.
Next slide. Okay, basically, CPAC Youth is a group of young people aged 12 to 25 at the Casula Powerhouse Arts Centre. We produce all sorts of events, basically with the help of the CPAC staff. We're able to produce our own events of all different kinds. Essentially, we both co-lead CPAC Youth, and what we do there is, in short, we just produce events for youth and by youth. Now, I know what you're thinking, who's this 12-year-old looking person at the MCA talking to you? Why should you care what I have to say? People are always super amazed when young people accomplish the littlest of things, which to me is I'm amazed at how little faith older people have in the youth. Ageism is a real thing, guys. There shouldn't be a limit on the age of a person's ideas that we're listening to. Otherwise, we'd be limiting the possibilities of where we could go as a society. Despite the perception that young people are lazy, don't know any better or have limited experience, we've all heard everyone nagging over millennials. It's been done before. I believe that young people are so important to society because they offer a fresh perspective that breaks the mold of traditions and create social change. Where we're from, Liverpool is one of the most diverse areas in Sydney, with a large amount of different cultural backgrounds living there, which I believe young people can represent themselves, and art can be an avenue for that. Back home in Casula, which for those you don't know is basically one suburb, one train station away from Liverpool, is a place that does not place priority on the arts. What we do at CPAC Youth is we try to break that perception and make art a priority.
So I think that young people are often misjudged for being nonchalant and only caring about social media, but that's actually a good thing because we've grown up having rapid access to news around the world. We're the most well-informed generation and the most culturally aware. Young people have been at the forefront of so many social movements like Black Lives Matter or School Strike for Climate Change, which I'm sure some of you know was started by a 16-year-old girl from Sweden. So it's not to say that young people don't need authority from older people, but just a consideration for them to say like, hey, like we actually kind of have a point. So with that being said, I do think that one of the benefits of being young and hyper-aware of everything that's going on in the world is that we're able to appreciate old values while bringing new perspectives. Gen Z is actually the most socially conscious, and we're not afraid to admit when change is needed. Maddie and I dream of one day becoming proper professionals in the arts industry, and if that were to happen, we'd be joining the 8% of professionals coming from culturally diverse backgrounds, so yay. Yeah. But despite the statistics, we have hope as young women of colour that by the time we grow old and achieve our dreams, the arts world will be full of creators from all sorts of backgrounds. And we can see that already starting to happen with initiatives like Diversity Arts Australia, Information and Cultural Exchange, and Sweatshop, just to name a few. And they all advocate to redefine what Australian art really looks like. So, in short, I think it's important to look to youth because we are a reflection of an ever-growing industry.
All right, where are we up to? Okay, So we host all sorts of events like One Past Liverpool, which shameless promotion. Basically, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary, and by doing that, we've got a bunch of young artists, 25 years and under, who are going to showcase works that kind of go in line with the history of Casula Powerhouse Arts Centre. If you'd like to come, mark that in your calendars. So we all host all sorts of different events, such as this, which is like a 90s themed party. This was a degustation thing where people ate foods from different cultures, and then as well as that they would have a performance that would go with that culture. Badge making workshops, and Art Meets West, which is our art and design market. Recently I got to project lead CPAC Live, which is the music gigs that happen at Casula Powerhouse Arts Centre. And so for this project, we got teenage musicians. Teenage musicians and bands from around the area the chance to perform and get paid for it. The idea fleshed out from my personal experience as a young musician in high school, finding that I couldn't find any opportunities outside of school to be able to practice my crafts and perform. And so, in order to do that, you'd have to go all the way to the city around here. So for this idea, we wanted to make sure that we bring it home that any musician from around our area could have the chance to perform. Through micromanaging these events with the help of the CPAC staff and Lillian, our facilitator, who's just right over there, we've been able to, they put this baby project into my hands, and we were able to make this opportunity happen. Through micromanaging these events, we create more accessible opportunities to the youth of Western Sydney that otherwise would not really happen.
So my favourite part of being part of a youth organisation is that you don't really need to know what your role is right away. CPAC Youth is made up of musicians, writers, graphic designers, photographers, actors, and everything in between. And our main aim is for young people to actively participate in the arts and to promote creativity in Western Sydney. We all eventually figure out what we really want to do, which I'm sure applies to not just young people. So when I first joined CPAC Youth, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew that I was really into art and I wanted to be around that. So I was surprised that there was a youth art collective that was not far from where I lived. And over the years, I have made amazing friends like Maddie, who I now consider my work wife. She didn't ask for it, I just put it on her. So my friends, they all inspired me and helped me realize that I'm kind of into writing. So the first pieces of creative writing that I wrote were for CPAC Youth zines, and I'm really grateful for my friends for encouraging me. And one day I might pluck up the courage to go back and look at my old pieces of writing. So now that I'm a little bit older and more sure of what I want to do, I want to keep facilitating that welcoming environment that made me love CPAC Youth in the first place. Some of our young members are still figuring out what they want their role to be, just like I once was, and that's okay because we mainly prioritize enthusiasm, positivity, and fun times. So Maddie and I have been members of CPAC Youth since 2015, and over the years we've grown our passion for diversity and representing ourselves as Southeast Asian women from Western Sydney. We want to provide a platform for unheard voices and giving a spotlight to new experiences. So I'm currently leading the project for our next event, which is A Place at the Table. It's on November 25th, if you want to jot that down in your Google calendars. So it's a 5-course degustation in which we'll be serving food from a variety of cultures, and we'll also have accompanying performances for it as well. We'll be collaborating with Playwave, who are working with IEC students to bring forth their stories. And I see CPAC Youth as a way to share these unique experiences through art and creativity, and the food is just a bonus. So over the years, we feel we've become more confident in our personal goals and talents, and now we've branched out to new avenues to further explore that creativity.
Okay. So as young people, we host these events and opportunities, not just because we're passionate about the arts, but because the arts is an incredible platform to reverberate what Steph is saying, to represent a range of voices and begin important conversations, as I've said, to create social change. With Steph's interest in publishing and my interest in music, we want to represent Southeast Asians in a way that breaks past traditions and expectations of our cultures. As a marketing lead, I try to get our events to reach the right people, our kindred spirits, if you will, and by doing so, create a network and sense of community through it. I mean, when I found out about the group, I literally typed into Google when I was 18, created places near me, and this place came up. I've lived in Casula my whole life, and so to find this place was like tripping over an ant in a field. It took me a long time to find, so I want to make sure that young people from around our area and beyond know that this is a place they can go to be their creative selves, to open up and feel supported by other young creative people, and as well as people who are already working in the arts industry. We try to create unity in community, as cheesy as that sounds, and make sure as many people's voices get heard. And that's it. If you like to...
Thank you. Thanks, Maddie and Steph. Now I'd like to invite Hayden Walsh up, who is the producer of Indigenous programs at Sydney Living Museums, to be our next speaker.
Good evening, and thanks for coming out tonight, and thanks to Sophie and Joe for having me. My name's Hayden Walsh. I'm a proud Wiradjuri man, and I spent much of my life growing up and working around the Gadigal area where we meet today. And I always reflect and think when I come past the harbour, and I think of the history of this space, and just it's a privilege to be able to speak about what I'm going to be speaking about tonight. So I'm just turned 25, and I've worked at a number of educational organisations and cultural institutions, including the Rocks Discovery Museum just around the corner, the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences, and now currently the producer of Indigenous programs at Sydney Living Museums, or SLM for short. I've also run my own business over the years where I've delivered workshops and mentoring to a bunch of high school students all across the country. And apologise in advance, I had a wisdom tooth taken out a few days ago, so if I'm a bit slurry or I'm a bit off, just forgive me. Tonight I just want to talk about two really important factors. I want to sort of step back from what I do and just share two things that have really sort of formed over my mind over the last 5-6 years, working with a lot of young people, all different backgrounds, all different places. And these are things that affect all cultural institutions in some ways, and some are much further along with their progress than others, but they affect us all in different ways. After I've discussed these two factors, if I have time, I'll quickly just touch on what the current state is at SLM and what my vision for the future is. So the first sort of concept I want to share with you is the idea of barriers, the access to entry that our young people have with our spaces. And this isn't just for programs, this is for whether they come in as a visitor on the weekend, something to do, or whether they're an employee down the line or just an ambassador for what we do. Now, there are two types of sort of barriers or access to entry that I think of, and some of them are internal, so as a staff member inside the institution, what are the problems and challenges that we face, and then what are the external ones that the young people face on their end. Internally, I'm sure a lot of you understand if you worked at a few different places, you know, the 7th restructure in 9 years, the different budget cuts, chops and changes, and the different roles that are created, taken away, created again. And then once all our internal mess and chaos is sorted, if it ever is, we open our doors to young people and we have these new great ideas, how we're going to bring them in. And then we realise, oh, they have a whole bunch of challenges and barriers on their end as well. It's almost like being in a relationship and talking about yourself and your own problems all day, and then you realise, oh, this person's got their own troubles and difficulty as well. And these sort of barriers can affect people of all ages and backgrounds, but it's very prominent in young people's lives, and it's important that we address them, because if you can sort of catch them early, and they can grow up visiting galleries and museums and getting involved with all these great things, then you can sort of get them for life. Whereas a lot of young people just grow up and then they remember museums as these places with old dusty bones and collections and history, and then they never go back until they take their kids back 20, 30 years later, which is sadly true, you know. And, you know, some of these challenges, one of them is a cultural wall, which I've experienced and a lot of community that I work with experience. You know, sometimes the spaces that we're in, you know, they're colonial spaces. They've had, you know, a lot of negative history there. And, you know, our audience can feel it either when they walk through, either they know it intellectually or they feel it within them. They don't feel comfortable in these spaces. Maybe the spaces promote the stories of, you know, all the English and European stuff, and they're not sharing our success and our stories. Or it could be financial. What do museums and galleries charge? Do we only sometimes seek out the schools or the kids or their parents that can maybe pay for an exclusive ticket? Or are the barriers socially challenging? You know, do the young people that we have in mind, are they going to get bullied, teased, little comments made at school if they interact with what we're doing? Often we can think what we're doing is super cool and great and mad and awesome, and then to them it's a little bit, you know. Or is it geographically problematic? And this is actually one that I think institutions handle the best. You know, we have a lot of travelling road exhibitions, we stream and digitise content, we have incentives for distant schools to come in and check out what we're doing. And we even do a good job normally with, like literally with barriers and access, making them safer for prams, wheelchairs, people with accessibility issues, and obviously I'm 100% supportive of that. But it seems that we tackle the geographical and physical barriers of our audiences much easier than we do for the cultural, financial and social barriers that they might be facing. And perhaps it's much easier to focus on the external, the physical things that we can differentiate between. Far, close, safe, not safe, rather than it is to pierce through the multi-layered problems that come with financial, cultural, social issues. But it's important that we do it if we want to capture audiences that are you know, different than the ones that we could normally get. For example, like in marketing, they call it there's like warm leads, cold leads. You know, the kids that are studying drama and art at school, you know, I sort of consider them, they're sort of warm leads. You know, it's not going to be too much, like you can get them in, but I'm talking about the kids that maybe have never been to a museum before. They consider themselves just in a sport or video games, and they're not their mind's not tapped into all the other stuff out there. So like I said, just as we have so many internal barriers to get our work done and to produce internally, we also have so many that our audience face as well. The second thing is the idea of service. How can we serve young people? So many cultural institutions could sometimes fall into the trap of trying to put on some great program, but somewhere along the way, they forget about the true meaning of why they're doing what they're doing and the real benefits that it can give these young people. Sometimes the endless paperwork, the repetitive meetings, the rigid structures, and the budgets and deadlines, sometimes the focus is then shifted from changing the world opening our doors for young people to create change. And then it gets diluted down to meeting quotas, ticking boxes, quick and easy photo ops. And we think of how do we look good instead of how do we do good. So they're the two sort of concepts that I want to leave with you, is the barriers that our audience have when accessing our spaces, and how can we truly serve them and provide them with something that's for them. And look, as an industry, I think we do a pretty good job in some way of, on our job applications, on our websites, in our media photos and releases. We ask for diversity, and the best diversity comes beyond that, beyond age, beyond background. Obviously that's important, but then beyond that, the diversity of thought and ideas and creativity. That's one of the things I love about working at SLM, and I actually didn't want to have a full-time job. A lot of young people really want a full-time job. I didn't want one. And this job came up, and as the Indigenous producer, and a lot of people sent it to me and said, you'd be great for it, check it out. And I was like, And I'm so glad I did, because it's a space that I've met the greatest people, and I'm really excited to continue to contribute there. Just a couple of quick stats. 35% of SLM staff are under 35, and 50% are under 40, including our new director, which I think is pretty cool, and it's nice when I go in, I see all different types of people, different ages, different backgrounds. And I was thinking about this just when I was preparing. I was thinking, I actually couldn't tell you the values of SLM, because most places they're up on a wall, the 4 key words, often the same everywhere you go. I couldn't tell you because we don't have that up on the walls. It's sort of just lived. And I know when I go there that I feel heard and listened to, whether that's as a young person, an Indigenous person, or whatever I'm talking about. I know that it's going to get heard across the organisation at any level. So when we're thinking about our institutions and the positions that are there, some places do have great roles like youth coordinator, engagement officer, and I think every place should have a role like this. But until they do, I think it's important that we all sort of connect with youth issues and understand why it's important. Because even when those roles do get created, it's still a collective thing that we should all think about. And it's all something that we can relate to, whether we're a young person now or we used to be. I'm not naming the cutoff because I don't want to offend anyone. But or we have kids, or we have nieces and nephews, or we don't, but we just care about the future of our society. It's something that should all be close in our hearts and in our minds. And this is a weird way to sort of wrap up, but when I was about 15, 16, I was suicidal and wanted to end my life. And a couple of things really saved me, and one of them was, youth programs. And I had a mentor, and, did a whole bunch of stuff, and just, I was so close to not going, but I sort of felt heard, and I felt like, it could be something for me. And it completely changed the trajectory of my life. I think it saved my life. And, from there, I've always been thinking about how can I replicate certain things, even if what I'm doing isn't a youth program, how can I weave parts of it into what I'm doing and share it with people so that we all understand that it's something we should carry in our hearts and carry in our minds, because, the future is coming through with young people, and we've got to do what we can to make that path a successful one. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Hayden. That was very touching to see somebody be so vulnerable. So thank you so much for sharing with us. I'd now like to invite Carly and Daniel up from Shopfront Arts Co-op to share their presentation. Thanks.
Hello, humans. So, my name is Carly Heiss. I am a performance maker and drag king. Performance making by day, glitterbeard by night. I have been a Shopfront member as an emerging artist for a number of years, and in March this year I became a core staff member in the office as well as young leader. So I'm speaking here today as a young person that Shopfront supports, but also as a staff member that supports young people at Shopfront. So in 2018, I was an Arts Lab artist in residence. So that's our residency program at Shopfront, which provides 6 months of free space a festival-style season at the end of the 6 months, a paid industry mentor. I had the pleasure of working with Zoe Coombs-Marr for the 6 months. The beginning of this year, I premiered a theatre/drag king hybrid show called Return of Kings, and it was just a really awesome, supportive way to make my first work as a young artist out of uni. So, I'm a young leader. That is as ambiguous and fun as it sounds. I am basically the youth in the office at the Home of Youth Arts. I act as a bridge between the young people and their brilliant, unrestricted ideas and the staff with the resources to make those ideas happen. I guess the best way to describe what I do, I'm just going to do a little bit of a week in the life of Carly at Shopfront. So on Tuesday, I may be in the office assisting in writing grants or writing the members' newsletter. Wednesday, I'll be chatting to fellow emerging artists about the works that they're making at Shopfront. Thursday, I'm out of school teaching drama club at lunch. Friday, I'm in the space rehearsing for my own new work that I'm making. And Saturday, more often than not, I am crawling around on the ground reenacting The Lion King with 10-year-olds. I am a young person from Shopfront, but I thought I'd bring an old person as well with me. Not just to, change the slides, but also have something to say. So this is my designated adult.
Hello everyone, I am Carly's designated adult here this evening. My name is Daniel Potter and I'm the Executive Director at Shopfront. I'm not going to talk for very long because I'm not really the one you're here to hear from. I'm saving all my gems of wisdom for the SAMAG session on why we should care what middle-aged white men. That's sure to be an interesting one. There are two things I do want to say though before I hand back to Carly. Shopfront is a 43-year-old organisation this year. It's a cooperative organisation. It was made that way by design by the people who founded Shopfront so that young people had a genuine voice and vote in how the company is run and what the company does. In 1978, our current home was bought by young people. Young people outvoted the adults, much to the dismay of the adult board members at the time, I think, who were terrified that they wanted to buy a place so that we wouldn't get moved around from council building to council building or, state building, whatever it was. A pretty scary notion for the adults, I think. Actually, one of those young people is in the building tonight. Hello. Fortunately, the young people won that call. They raised all the money themselves with a little bit of money from the Ministry for the Arts and I think a $30,000 mortgage, and they bought the 3 blocks of land that Shopfront now occupies for $150,000 in southern Sydney. That's a pretty good decision by those young people. That land is now on our balance sheet at $2.6 million and has been the thing that has saved Shopfront, I think, time and time again, having a home and something we can leverage. And right now we're in the middle of renovating that home into a space for young people over the next 40 or so years. The only other thing I wanted to add about why we should care about what young people think. We talk about young people all the time as the audiences and the artists of tomorrow, but they're actually not. They're the audiences and artists of now. I'm stealing that from Wesley Enoch. I wasn't going to credit him, but now I feel guilty. He said it in a video that we got him to do. And I thought it was a really important point. It's actually not about tomorrow. It's about now. They're the people who are engaging with and consuming our cultural offerings right now. It should be relevant to them. All right, Carly, I'm done.
Cool. Old man likes to talk. No, I'm just kidding. Young people are at the heart of everything that we do at Shopfront. The difference between us and other youth arts organisations is that Shopfront works with practicing professional artists to collaborate with our young people and emerging artists. So we have professionals who are in the room as equal collaborators with our young people and create new works. So our members, when I talk about them, I'm talking about workshop participants, so people aged from 8 to 19, doing workshops on filmmaking, drama, technical theatre, acting for stage, and also some other free workshops in other different art mediums. Also our emerging artists, so we have an open shop program, monthly scratch nights, which was the brainchild of one of our members who came and said, I want to do scratch nights, and we were like, yeah, let's do it. So we've had 9 successful ones now. Our Arts Lab residency, which I mentioned earlier, and some of our new Arts Lab artists are in the room tonight, which is very exciting, and our members show. So Shopfront is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive space. 3 years ago, we abolished our accessibility stream, rather wishing to integrate these young people and emerging artists with support needs into all of our programs, regardless of their ability. Shopfront supports and empowers all young people while making really high quality art, if we do say so ourselves. So young people have a say in all key decision making at Shopfront. There are actually young people in all levels of our leadership. So the members, myself in the office, and then 3 out of 9 of our board members are actually under 25. 2 of which were Shopfront members as children and came to workshops and are now board members. The members had a say in our new brand, this beautiful big thing that we've plastered up in front of you here, and also told us what they wanted to see in the new building that we're currently renovating. And we gave those notes to the architect, and I guess they'll see you in a few months. Cool. We also have 3 ensembles at Shopfront. So we have our junior ensemble for those aged 8 to 14, senior ensemble 15 to 19, and then our harness ensemble, which I am a part of, which is a group of emerging artists with and without disability. Shameless promo here from us as well. Next week we have our new harness ensemble show, The Experts, premiering for Sydney Fringe. If you'd like a discount code, come and chat to me after. So that one is directed by Natalie Rose and Malcolm Whitaker, and I have the pleasure of being in it. So we've talked about art making at Shopfront. What about art viewing? I hear you all asking. So that's where Playwave comes in, and Playwave was touched on before by CPAC Youth, but it is a program that's powered by Shopfront that connects young people to art and culture around Sydney. So it's a membership platform for young people aged 15 to 19, giving them access to discounted tickets, special events and original online content, including the event with CPAC Youth in a little bit. So why should we care what young people think? Well, as a youth-led organisation, we would cease to exist without what they think. Everything we do at Shopfront amplifies the voices of young people and the importance of youth arts. Plus, our ideas are pretty awesome. And with the support of Shopfront facilitators and staff, we can make these awesome ideas into awesome art. The arts sector can only be sustained by including the voices of our future now. By allowing young people the opportunity to imagine, create, collaborate, and learn critical and creative thinking, this ensures that the future of Australia's cultural landscape is innovative, open, and responsive. Shopfront is committed to Australia's artistic future and aims to create an environment that is vibrant and shares the stories of young people from all walks of life. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was fantastic. Now, I would like to invite our second last pair of speakers, Jess and Lily, from Information and Cultural Exchange's New Age Noise project, up to speak. Thank you.
Oh, where's she going? We have to time ourselves, otherwise we'll keep talking.
Yeah, we're a bit.
I'll pull you down. Okay, good. Sophie will pull us down.
Perfect.
So we thank you to Emma for your beautiful welcome today. We feel really privileged to be here and talking to you all. Thank you to Sophie and Joe and to SAMAG for having us and inviting us to talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess we just have to introduce ourselves really. So I'm Lily, kind of an Auger electronic veteran, now a New Age Noise veteran, one of the OGs. What's up? So yeah, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I am a student. I'm a corporate chica. I'm kind of a youth collective nut. In my time as a young adult, I've been a part of PYT, Age, Nancy, Youth Collective for All Girl New South Wales, and I had a brief stint in CPAC as well. And kind of based on all my experiences, I kind of feel as if these
collectives are very special in a sense that they do drive purpose and they can drive cultural shifts if we allow them to. And also they can have a strong sense of purpose if we let them. But yeah.
Yeah. My name's Jess Pataha. I'm a Ngāti Hini Māori woman. I was born and raised here in the Eora Nation, and we're very lucky to have lived here. I'm a radio presenter with FBI Radio. I have a show on Sunday mornings called The Weekend Overhang. I'm also a member of the New Age Noise Collective. And I'm also a youth arts worker at Bankstown Youth Development Service. Like Carly, we've also BYO'd our own designated adult, Morgan Graham, who is our project manager for New Age Noise Collective. And Morgan has brought her designated young person, Alyssa Yang, who's also a New Age Noise Collective member and Morgan's intern. Today, we're going to be talking to you about young people and institution relationships and how fraught and cute they can be. And also process-driven programs versus outcome-driven programs and some of the good stuff that comes out of process-driven ones.
Yeah, so basically by touching on the good, the bad and the ugly that comes with all these youth organisations, I just want to touch on the positives first because, you know, it is a good thing overall. At its best, all these youth collectives can be a place to facilitate and foster growth. Throughout my time within all these collectives, particularly with All Girl Electronic, it was a universal platform where I could really find my passion. It is because of these kind of organisations that I facilitate art right now. I'm an active practitioner because of places like this. It's allowed me to find collaborators who I genuinely and truly align with from a social, political and creative perspective, which is truly special. But in saying that these places are not perfect, I think we're in a very special state where we can kind of change the way in which these collectives really kind of organise themselves. Truthfully, I feel like there is a chance to go beyond the surface level and really deep dive into a place where we can go beyond the tokenistic changes and rather than just taking us beyond that idea that we're just checklists essentially. One classic example can just be what's I think you could agree with kind of what's happened recently with our collective itself. Would you want to kind of deep dive into that a little bit more?
Sure. So our collective was born out of the New Age Noise program, which is a program teaching young non-binary, trans and femme youth how to create and explore electronic music through teaching hard skills in Ableton software and expressing ourselves in that way. The collective came about from alumni from that project, and we came together with the plan to put on 2 events in 2019's calendar year. The first event coinciding with the launch of our website and the second event coinciding with the launch of our mixtape. What the New Age Noise program does really well is that it is process driven. It has no specific outcomes. They are completely aligned with the requirements of the young people that are coming along to the project. Where our collective may have fallen down a little bit is that instead of being process driven, we were hard outcomes driven, which is those events and those things that I mentioned earlier. This kind of put a bit of a stressor on us, where instead of the collective being able to find our own feet, be given autonomy and power to make changes that are long-lasting, we instead ended up kind of stressfully moving towards completing outcomes that were designated by the institution that we were working within, which were all great and had the best of intentions. But in terms of real long-lasting change, it meant that we kind of burned out.
Yeah. Another challenge that we kind of face that we're striving to move towards now in the near future is essentially that balance between meaningful output versus exploitation of the youth within the group itself. And I think this is a challenge that a lot of these collectives kind of face that needs to be addressed. Because at the end of the day, if we're not being paid for our services, you have to at least respect the autonomy and the vision that is being put forward by us. And I think that is a challenge in and of itself, because at the end of the day, we are worth it. Yeah, essentially, it's just, and it is just something that really does need to be delved into in a bit more depth. Yeah, because or at the very least, if the kind of contribution that you're going to give to us is not necessarily monetary, there is space for it to at least be an in-kind or just have a sincere lead to professional development. I think just really needs to be seen, because if you are going to give us a space to kind of grow professionally, you need to give us a light as well, because things do happen once you turn 25. You don't just stop existing.
And with that, we will stop existing at this lectern and sit down.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd now like to invite Lucy and Em up, who are MCA Young Creatives, Youth Committee members and Young Guides. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lucy and this is Em, and we are part of the Young Creatives here at the MCA, and we partake in the museum through two main forms, them being the Young Guides program and the Youth Committee program.
Before we continue discussing our role as youth at the MCA, we want to introduce a game we call Conversation Starters. Most people in the audience should have a paddle, one side indicating yes and the other indicating no. Every time we ask you a question, we would like you to put your paddles in the air with your answer. So, our first question.
Do you know about the Youth Committee or the Young Guides? Some yeses, some nos. Okay, pretty mixed response.
Yeah.
The Young Guides host weekly tours of the permanent collection and the latest exhibitions, and the Youth Committee is a group of 20 teenagers who seek to make art more accessible for youth through a program that we call Gen Next.
So, next question. Does the idea of 700 teenagers in one building terrify you? No? That's surprising. All right, and do you actually know what Gen Next is? Yeah, bit mixed again. All right, so for those who don't know what Gen Next is, one of our talented fellow Youth Committee members, Emily Bryson, has created a short video showcasing what exactly it's all about.
Gen Next is a free event held for young people, created by young people, us, the Youth Committee. Each event is a response to the exhibit that's displayed at the time at the MCA, and this is what makes Gen Next so exciting and so unique, because each one is different and it's always diverse.
There's music, there's food, but you get the whole gallery to yourselves. There's no one else there who's not your age. It's a chance to meet people, it's a social event, and it's a whole lot of fun.
MCA Gen Next is unlike anything anywhere. I mean, the MCA provides us with a space that we can just be ourselves and really do whatever we want for the course of a night.
So to bring Gen Next into perspective, I suppose, the Youth Committee will spend weeks curating workshops in order to give youth the opportunity to engage with art in an accessible level, and it all culminates on 4 Sunday nights a year where 600, 700 people, sometimes even more than that, storm into the gallery at 6 p.m. and they get to explore all the latest exhibitions, they get to do all the workshops that we created, and even just kind of listen to music on the rooftop that we have playing with bands. And so the main concept behind Gen Next is that it's an event for young people by young people, and we understand what youth want in a night like this, and we deliver it to them.
So, the Youth Committee and Young Guides are committed to making art accessible to all. The Youth Committee interacts mainly with other young people to project their views throughout the rest of the museum, giving insights about our society that can only be understood by other young people. Today's youth tend to have differing views on today's issues compared to the other generations, older generations, and so being able to discuss these opinions in an environment such as the MCA is extremely important to us. That brings us to another question. Do you think young people's opinions matter?
Yes. Yay. That's
Yes.
correct. So meanwhile, we have the young guides who interact with a wildly different demographic, mainly dictated by whoever walks up those entrance level stairs. And that can range from active art enthusiasts to tourists who thought that the building looked really interesting. They just wanted to have a closer look. And they might not be familiar with art at all. And that's where it's really valuable to have young people running these tours, because young people also have really wild opinions and wildly different opinions as well. And so it demystifies contemporary art and breaks down barriers. The young guides take a conversational approach in which the playing field is completely level based off young people knowing what it feels like to be felt a bit inaccessible. So the next question, does contemporary art baffle you?
A lot of no's. So if you talk to any young creative at the MCA, you'll be quick to realise that there are many artworks we also struggle to understand, but that doesn't stop us from trying to tackle these works with a public audience. We recognise that art is more than just a canvas on the wall. It's a powerful tool that informs us and connects young people to current issues and concerns. However, we also see that it's not easy to recognise this. Many of our workshops at GenX deal with current events, thus encouraging young people to voice their opinions and listen to those of others. Earlier this year, our GenX, based on Janet Lawrence's exhibition, After Nature, was focused on climate change and the school strikes, and we invited our audience to reflect on climate change as a global issue and share their own opinions with others.
So therefore, we can say that our ultimate role at the MCA is ensuring youth are able to access art in a way that engages them at an individual level. GenX, as a program for youth, by youth, kind of hits the nail on the head as we facilitate a safe space for other like-minded individuals to delve deeper into the world of art.
So, coming into the MCA as young people, we have fresh ideas and we're willing to make a push in order for our voices to be heard. And we are able to open up the MCA as a space for youth to engage with art, and thus the deeper ideas and notions behind art. So, as a teenager, do you think you would be confident to express yourself through your wardrobe?
Yeah. So through GenX, something that we're really proud to say that we bring to the museum is the creation of a safe space where people can be free of judgment and kind of be themselves. And one of the main indicators of that happens to be some of the crazy kind of outfits that are exchanged for the day-to-day school uniform at GenX.
But beyond how people decide to outwardly express themselves through clothes, we get a lot of feedback from people saying they feel accepted and unafraid to be who they are or strive to become. These two quotes are just two examples of so many others that Joe found through the pattern maker's research that indicate the importance of GenX as a safe space. And that brings us to our next question.
Do you think art is for everyone? And do you think everyone knows that? So some people may feel really alienated from art, and it's so easy to get the impression that it isn't accessible to everyone. So many of the workshops that we put together are designed to use art as more of a vessel to bring people together from different cultural and even political orientations.
And in light of a general push for accessibility at our last GenX, we put together an Auslan workshop in which one of our youth committee members, Amy, who is part of the deaf community, raised awareness of people living with deafness by teaching GenX goers some basic sign language. Workshops like this are a learning experience for both visitors and us as youth committee members, as we become more aware and are able to interact, which by extension opens up the gallery as a whole to a wider range of people.
So finally, why you should care what we think. At this point, I'm really hoping that you can answer that question for yourselves. But if you're still kind of struggling, then we have a couple more prompts that could be interesting to think about for you. So, have you ever asked a teenager for advice? Do you think young people keep up with the news cycle? And do you think that young people's input is valid?
So the youth programs don't aim to validate young people's opinions because our opinions are already valid. But what programs like Gen X and the Young Guides do is make these people realise that they can make their voices heard by fostering healthy conversations around issues that affect the world today and that will eventually affect us as a generation.
Among us are the people that we're relying on for a future. So ultimately what we're trying to do is nurture innovation and creation in everyone and preserve that in the form that it exists within when it's in the kind of structural framework that these youth programs give us. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening.
We're going to have Q&A now, so I'd like to ask all the speakers to come back up. We've got some stools over here. Grab a stool. We've got some mics that'll float around, so start thinking of your questions. I think what Lucy was saying about asking advice, I'd personally like to ask some advice of young people. What do you think that institutions could start or improve to do to give young people more of a voice and a place within them?
Me?
Anyone, all of you. You inspired it, but anybody's welcome.
Trust us. Just trust us, seriously. Because one thing I've noticed when we're on these committees is, and I'm not going to name names, but there are some groups that I have kind of labelled as glorified market research, as opposed to places that facilitate actual social change. You chose us to be on these collectives for a reason. Trust our vision.
Good one.
Yeah, just my point. I guess that the thing that I love about A2IP is that with the atypicals, I do feel like we really do get heard. Like they come to us with questions all the time, and we can be pretty blunt. And they're like, "Please let us know what you want us to improve on." And so I think definitely having those kind of small collectives, the I guess youth boards, they're really important. And just kind of constantly coming back to them. And you allow youth to feel safe enough to then constantly give their opinions. I mean, I know I'm in the office way too much now, sorry guys, constantly giving my opinion of what I want and constantly pushing, for what I want. So I think that's what, the companies need to be doing.
Thank you. Has anyone got anything else they'd like to add?
When you put a bunch of 13, 14 and 15-year-olds in a room and you ask them to make a decision about something really important to a company and they make a decision and the company goes with it, people feel empowered. So if a young person comes to you with a suggestion for something, don't worry about it and think about all the pros and cons and make a list and a database and a survey. Go with the idea, and if it doesn't work out, then the young person has learnt something about how it is to live in a world where the art isn't funded as much as it should be. But if a young person comes to you with advice or a suggestion, take the suggestion.
Yeah, and just kind of off the back of that, I mean, I think it's really important to take a collaborative approach. We talked about an equal playing field in our talk, so I think it's really an important starting point. If you're starting from different levels, you're having different conversations, and you'll never meet in the middle. So, yeah.
Just to be the adult that kind of contributes. I think, sorry, shut me up if I think on a really practical level for any organisations that don't currently engage young people, whether through programming or through a youth council or whatever it might be, I think the really practical first place to start is having a really truthful conversation about why you want young people in the building. You know, is it a marketing exercise? Is it a box ticking, a funding objective? Or is it that you actually want to create a space for those conversations to happen? And I think once you've had and I think you can be really truthful about that, because that will in turn set up the parameters of what you can and can't do. And I think from then on, it's really about being really transparent with young people and really respecting them to say, this is the parameters of what we've got to do. This is our budget, and really involve them as peers in that process. But I think starting with why do we want teenagers in? Why do we want 700 teenagers in the building? You know, I think that's an important, really basic place to start.
Great.
Being in a collective, you know, you have a lot of POC and people from like Western Sydney and places that are kind of socially disadvantaged. You kind of sometimes like you get seen as, you know, one-stop shops and stuff like that, and there's a lot of tokenism going on. How do you guys go about navigating these situations?
Great question. I think that for our collective particularly, because we're based in Parramatta and our mission is to try and empower femme, trans and non-binary young people to express themselves through making music, we do have a lot of QPOC that come through our doors, and that does mean that we're approached quite often by larger institutions that see our mission statement and see the young people that are coming through and want to kind of jump on the bandwagon with us. And sometimes that is difficult for us to make decisions about, because we need to weigh up whether those institutions have the best intentions in mind for us, and whether we want to engage with them, whether it is practicing tokenism or glorified market research, or whether they truly do want us in the room for any particular reason. The way that we try and battle that as a collective is by discussing everything together. There's no one person that makes the decisions for us. We make them for each other, only after we're completely sure. And that might take time, and we're totally okay with taking time. We don't feel pressured to answer tomorrow, by the end of the business day, by the end of the week. We only do it when we're sure. So I think that helps. Having a community that listens to you and that you feel comfortable discussing these awkward things with is huge.
Okay, so I'll try my best to answer your question. I think that coming from Liverpool and Western Sydney in general, we're already surrounded by so much diversity, and it's just how it's always been. So with CPAC Youth, the initiative is not, it has to be led by women of colour, it has to have this. Like, it's just already a group that's full of so much diversity. And it just doesn't feel like that we are boxes to check, because it's just the way that it is. I hope that answers your question.
So again, I will also try to answer your question as best as I'm capable. I remember at the beginning of this year, one of our first sessions as Atypicals, they asked, what can we improve on? What do you think we're lacking in? And so on. And I was really surprised from how many voices we heard, or we all wrote down that we wanted to see more programs and more shows and just more reach out into other areas which are not within the small little space that the city is, going out to more regional areas, giving everyone opportunities. And I think that's also one of the amazing things that the youth do, because they're so culturally aware of everything that they're going, no, we actually want to see more representation from everyone. We want to have everyone be included, because we want all discussions, all stories to be told. So I know that's something that we kind of just keep pushing for the companies to do. And I think that's what everyone's starting to do, which is a really good thing. So sorry, I forgot your name, but the guys from CPAC, some companies they have those voices, and others are starting to finally get the push to, even though they already do integrate some, definitely getting the push to integrate as many as possible.
We're Steph and Maddie, by the way.
Hi, Steph and Maddie, I'm sorry.
Question up the back.
Hi, this is for Jess and Lillian. You spoke about your program needing to be less outcome-based in some of the learnings. I was wondering how you've put that in practice and what it looks like now.
So there is a particular charity that inspires me a fair bit. They're known as Backtrack. I like to refer to them as a case study that I would like to see I love their process. I love the fact that one of the main things about them is that they're not time-based. The people who are welcome are able to stay indefinitely, so long as they follow along the line and kind of not even deliver to the outcomes, just so long as they kind of stay and are actually participants of the program. And I think All Girl Electronic kind of has a soft version of that. And I would like to see something like that kind of perpetuated throughout these other collectives, because the true cause of a collective is to help people grow and facilitate a community. It's not just about staying for a year then getting the F out, truthfully. So I think by relying on process and teaching people hard skills and kind of facilitating that growth, I think that's the way forward, rather than just going, oh, we're going to have this event, tick. Personally, that's just what I would like to see, especially if we've seen it being done before. There's no reason why it can't keep happening.
I think for me, outside of my work with the collective, I also work for Bankstown Youth Development Service, and I run a project called Stories of Strength that is about going into communities, high schools in the Bankstown LGA, and delivering a 10-week term-long program where our outcome is for students to interview people in their family and collect oral histories, but really the program is designed to be process driven. So even if a student doesn't create an interview, it's not like they've failed. We celebrate them just as much. And I think that that's part of the challenge, is focusing on process and reassessing what successfulness means within that process. Because for a lot of young people, it's not necessarily the outcome that's the most important thing. It's about creating relationships and creating community. And really, if one of my students is able to connect with a peer that they've known for maybe several years, but never really got to know intimately or feel trust, or maybe they had a tenuous relationship, to see them open up and feel confident, that's an outcome, and that's enough. So I think that shift towards assessing successfulness is really important.
Congratulations, everyone, on your presentations. Thank you. It was great to hear from you all. I'm interested about engagement of boys. Can anyone tell me whether you do different engagement strategies for boys and for young women in your organisations?
No. I see so many boys at A2IP, just like as many girls. It actually makes me really happy to see that so many guys are really involved in acting and in the arts. I don't think you do anything. It's really good.
We with our youth committee, this year we have 2 boys on the youth committee this year, and in past years there's been 5 or 6, and it really, I think for us, is a really interesting question about who is represented on the committee and how important that is, and it's something that I think we would love to see more of. But I think in saying that, we'd also love to see more LGBTQI young people, and really as part of a more overview of who is in the room. And I think, certainly when it comes to who turns up at Gen Next, it's a 50-50 split. And I think there's a lot of word of mouth and a lot of, who's cool and who's going to give me permission to do this. And I think so much of what the success of Gen Next is and the youth committee is that it really is this space where they advocate for themselves and promote that opportunity. And I think it's something that I would love to see more boys on the youth committee, but I don't think that's because they bring something particularly unique to, I don't think their value is any more or less than any of the other people on the committee, but it is something that certainly in who responds to surveys and who books the tickets, and there are some really interesting kind of gendered patterns there. I don't know how we redress that. I'd be really interested if anybody does have some kind of thoughts around that, but I certainly think that, and maybe Em and Lucy can speak to this more in terms of their experiences of being on the youth committee and being young women and what that means. But I don't know if that answers the question, sort of a vague equivocation of...
Hi everyone, thank you for your contributions and your presentations. They've been really inspiring and made me think a lot about the way that I'd like to enact some of those things at the organisation that I work for. I'm interested in social impact, but I'm also interested, this is obviously contemporary art, performing arts, creative arts. I'm wondering what collectives you've connected with into industry, across, say, sport or health or, other sectors, because I think that might, promote the advocacy and the case for, just how powerful the arts are in establishing these collectives and these kind of ways of moving forward, to better our society and actually connecting and bringing, value to people who don't necessarily connect with the arts, and making it more relatable across fields. Does that make sense? Okay.
So for the youth committee at the moment, we have an upcoming Gen X in a few weeks. We are currently programming ours around mental health. Tomorrow is Are You OK Day. This month is September is a very big month for promoting the importance of mental health. And as the youth committee, and as I think I can speak for most youth, that we really acknowledge the importance of mental health. For me, I'm in year 12 at the moment. My mental health is something that I'm always trying to keep at the forefront of my mind. And so I think for us as the youth committee, programming this Gen X to really resonate with the importance of mental health and mental well-being. We've been really excited to delve into this, and we've been collaborating with Reach Out as well, a mental health organisation who have really great resources on not only how to deal with your own mental health and overall health, that includes spiritual and physical health. It also includes they have a lot of really good resources surrounding how to help your friends with their own mental health, things like that. So I think I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but answering your question in the first place, I think that connecting the arts and mental health is really important for us in the youth committee. And I think.
And we connect with a bunch of other things as well. I mean, I think even though Gen Next is programmed around an exhibition, all the workshops range from all sorts of things, and the people who visit Gen Next aren't all art enthusiasts. They come to see their friends, they come to listen to music, eat food, which I don't blame them for, but we are always programming things around current issues and things that are going on in the news. So for the Janet Lawrence exhibition, we had a youth climate strikers panel, and we always have climate strikers coming to Gen X just in general as visitors. And so I think young people kind of naturally are transdisciplinary. It's more about making a space that they can go to.
Okay, so I work with young people in my programming, and I'm always looking for new ways to connect with young people, and I just thought this would be a good opportunity to ask, are there any big barriers you find connecting into organisations and into institutions? Obviously at some level you've all connected with an org or an institution, but it's really hard to get the door open. And what can organisations, what can institutions do better to be more available to young people?
I think one of the big things for me was that when I walked into the ATYP offices, I wasn't treated like a client or a student or like that young person. I was treated like, they're like, how are you? And like have a hot chocolate. Like I was treated like part of a team rather than part of like a separate group of people. So if you engage with young people as if they're not young people and they're just people, then I think that it's a much better way of getting them to treat you like a person, not an adult.
Yeah, touching on what Daisy said and also what Jo said earlier, it's really like having a purpose for wanting to talk to them. Like if you're just ticking a box, I'm not going to give a stuff, to be honest. But it's really, treating us like individuals and having a reason to want to hear our voices. A little bit as well is why they should also care about you. Like there's so much stuff where people are saying like, come to our thing. Like as a random example, like finance, come to finance. It's like, why should we care? Where it's like, how is it going to benefit us, or how are you actually going to take our opinion on board? So I think just transparency is ultimately what it is. And as long as it's a two-way street of you're both going to get something beneficial out of it, that's how to keep organisations working with youth and youth working with organisations, definitely.
I think another thing is just putting your information out there for young people to see. Like I got through to the MCA through a school program, and then through that I got to know about the youth committee, and I met Jo, and now I'm part of the MCA. But if I didn't, then I would have no idea about being on the youth committee, Young Guides, Gen X, things like that. So I think it's becoming increasingly more prevalent to see youth organizations like through social media. So I think it's just making sure that you're really getting your information out there for young people to see. Social media is a great way to do that. So I think that's just another thing to get young people really engaged and involved.
That idea of service, which I touched on a little bit, but like how we're gonna serve you. Like beyond what are the benefits you can list down, how is it a real service? And, there's so many cool events, and there's things that you can entice young people to come to. But if they feel deep down, wow, this person, this program, this institution cares about me, they're gonna, like we touched on, we're not gonna just view you as this young person, but as a person, with ideas, goals, dreams, fears, emotions. How are we going to serve you and give you whatever it is you need in that instance to be who you want to be?
Great. Please join me in thanking all of our speakers. And I'd also like to thank all of the support networks who have allowed our speakers to be here tonight, and to the SAMAG team and the MCA team, and especially to Jo. Thank you so much. Please join us just across the way for a drink and a snack now. Thanks, guys.